Being yoga is okay. Being yoga is a course that I started in 2004. It was to be the first 3 Mondays of every month, except when there's a holiday, and then we move it. And then there's a physical practice and breath practice component that goes with it. So whatever kind of the topic is for the time, generally then I do a master sadhana and it goes with it. Well, back in 2004, I mean, to have a course that was called Being Yoga, and it's a yoga psychology course, was a really weird thing. And everybody that, any of colleagues or anybody that I knew, they were like, good luck. No one's going to come to that. And also, I was in Pasadena at the time as well. Well, they were wrong because back then, we started it and I had it. I started it in my townhouse, which was close to the Pasadena studio until we had upwards, there was like 22, 24, 25 people there. But, being yoga has taken on a lot of different ways of how it looks. Because we were meeting so regularly, we meet at my house. Usually, the way it would work is I would be teaching Yoga Foundation because I usually taught the Monday Yoga Foundation. And everybody would all the being yogis would just head on over to my townhouse and they'd be over there. And then we started, I don't remember if it was pizza first or buffet. Then we were like, it'd be great if we had food. Well, all in all, first we ordered pizza. Then it kind of turned into, the first half hour was a pizza party. Then we decided to move it to back to the studio because it was getting so big. And this course, Being Yoga, is a separate tuition. As a matter of fact, the way I priced it, I wanted to make sure people were serious about wanting to learn about yoga psychology. So I kind of used the tuition as a gateway. So it's not inexpensive, as far as how most people think anyway. I think it's super inexpensive, but the way many people would think. And it just kept growing. But then, so we did it Monday night, then we started having a potluck. So we decided to do a potluck. Well, this potluck, oh my gosh, like the tables got longer and longer. And I'd be waiting up front going, whenever we're going to start. And then, because everybody would get their food and then everybody would be sitting and eating their food. And it was just so neat. But then, of course, we were like, okay, we're going to bring it back. So it's looked a lot of different ways. I've had different times since 2004 that I thought, is Being Yoga going to continue? Is it something that people are going to want to continue to have? And every year people keep showing up, and especially during the pandemic when we went by Zoom, it was bigger than ever. We were having upwards of 40 to 45 people zooming in, and I think in part it really did a lot to help people move through the pandemic and all. But it really is one of my favorite courses. And so what we're doing is we've been doing the first Monday, it's still Being Yoga. And I'm still leading with, for you more advanced students, I'm still leading with an intro with what the month will be about. But I do it in a way where I don't use as much Sanskrit. I'll still throw it out there because there's just not a lot of good English words sometimes for words that Sanskrit describes, but I'll try to make sure that I give you more or less what it means. But the main idea that I hope is that everybody can be more edified around what yoga and Ayurveda yoga what it really is, and what it can really do for you, and what it can do for your life. And my hope for everyone, whether you're just here visiting tonight for open house, or whether you've been here since 2004, or somewhere in between, is that you can walk away tonight with just one thing that might alleviate suffering, one thing that might just open the door just a little bit. And so you don't want to try to catch everything, just say, if there's just one thing. And the whole idea tonight, is there a way to move that block on there so I can just, because then I can't really, I know y'all may think, well, how can she ever see him from there? But I really can tell people's shapes, like I can tell their Satvi, Shelley, Oh, thank you. Woohoo. So our topic tonight really is back to the basics, and that sounds so like, okay, well, what's that going to be about? Is this going to be very interesting? Is this going to be anything that's going to be useful? Well, if you're someone about mastery, then you will find the basics incredibly useful. But if you're someone that tends to live more in destination addiction and, sort of all or nothing, I want it when I want it, then the basics aren't really that fun. They're not necessarily glamorous. They're not the most sexy part of things. What we tend to see is the most glamorous or whenever things kind of, like what I call kind of the dog and pony show, and we have kind of an emotional high, and we're like rah rah rah, and we might feel really good, but then it kind of falls flat, because the truth is, in the idea of beginning again and back to the basics, it really is very much aligned with what I refer to as the law of the farm, right? Very simple truths that will always be true no matter what. It's not about belief or, but it's about, the changes in the weather. One thing you know for sure is that the weather will always change. One thing you know for sure is that if you hold something and you open your hand, it's going to drop. I mean, unless it's, a post it note or something, unless you got really good post it notes, or the ones that aren't so great. But there are just certain truths that are going to be true no matter what. And this is really what Ayurveda yoga is about. It's not about beliefs and, trendy things that give us emotional highs. And it's really the most important word when we're thinking of the idea of back to the basics or beginning at the basics. Most important word is sustainability. This is a very simple, speaking, okay, teachers in here, is it an I or an A after sustain? Sustainability. I'll put you guys on. I've forgotten how to spell anymore. Is it? Did I get it right? Okay. And for you guys that are online, I know that you can't see the board, but I'm going to say what I'm putting on the board. This is really for my own process. So just so you know, so I'm not going to put anything on here. I'm not telling you, but the key thing is sustainability. It's pretty simple. If it's something that can truly be sustained over time and it is helpful, it's helpful and it's useful, then that is something you want to lean toward. Even the idea around, when somebody says, is that true or is it not true? Well, instead of looking at life that way, one of the most basic and simple rules that I tend to follow is I'm not really concerned about is something true or not true. Because let's face it, you can gather evidence to prove anything you want to prove. Right? I mean, I think we can see that in our world today. You can see it anywhere. If you've got a certain position that a person wants to take, a person can find proof to make that happen. So when it comes to back to the basics and what I'm speaking of here, the question really is always, how sustainable is this? And if something is sustainable, it's going to be something that's helpful. Truly helpful. And again, these things I'm going to offer you guys tonight, I know they may not seem so groundbreaking, but the truth is, to the mind of the master, it really is the simple things. Bruce Lee, I admire him so much for his discipline, power, and focus. And he says, I fear not the man that's practiced 10,000 kicks one time, but the man that has practiced one kick 10,000 times. And that's really what distinguishes us, I think, from many other yoga studios, and that we're a yoga school, and we are very much more about the mastery of sustainability from the inside out. And so the idea then being, when we're looking at sustainability, is that the basics are a must, the fundamentals are a must. And in Ayurveda yoga, and I want to just make a quick distinction here around what Ayurveda is and what yoga is. Ayurveda is the study of your nature. And it's like the what, why, where, and when, right? All the W's. And yoga is the practice and the study of realization of your true nature. So Ayurveda is the what, why, where, when of your true nature. Yoga is the how of your true nature, how to realize that true self. And that true self, like I said, it's something that is sustainable. And I'll give you an example. You know, when you're on your mat, for many of you that have been here and you practice asana on your mat, it is not going to be sustainable to be on your mat, to inhale, flail your arms up, exhale, throw yourself forward, inhale, throw yourself back. That's not going to be sustainable. You'll eventually quit and try to find something else. What is really sustainable in an asana practice and really beginning at the basics is really making your feet so important. Your toes are spread, you're stretching back from your heels. Like, it is the most structurally the most important thing, right? And then secondarily, you make the most important thing your breath your movements preceding every breath. To come in and to practice where you're kind of then throwing and doing all this, that's not going to be sustainable. It's not going to interest you for very long. But when you really get about the business of the basics of, for example, what is my foundation structurally doing? I think somebody's trying to be admitted. What is my foundation structurally doing? What's going on there? And how well am I following my breath? You know, I've been in 2 classes today, and it's something, because when a person first starts, it's as though their breath is calling them home, but so often we don't listen. It's like the body is trying to outrun the breath. And the problem with that is that the breath is the most manifested form of your life force. And when your physical structure, when you have trained your physical structure so well that it is running without your breath and life force, that's a problem. And it is not sustainable. We've got 3 aspects of our makeup. We have our physical manifested body. We have what we refer to as our subtle body, which is comprised of our mental, emotional nature. And then we have the aspect of our body that is how we think. And so we really want to get our mental, emotional nature, our thoughts, and our body into a coherent relationship. Our thoughts and the way that we think are like throwing out a signal, right? Every time you have a thought, it's like you're sending a signal or a frequency out. And then you have a corresponding emotion, which that's what Rasa is, one of the meanings of emotion. You have a corresponding emotion, and an emotion comes back to you, and your physical body experiences the emotion. So you have a thought, you have an emotional kind of experience, and your body is what experiences the emotion. And so when we're on our mat, if your body has been trained to sort of run without you, I mean, have you ever felt like you're kind of, you know, that old saying, a chicken with the head cut off? And I mean, we've got different sayings for this, but have you ever felt like, you know, your body's moving, but it doesn't feel like anybody's home? Or at the end of the day, do you ever feel like you are just like a rag doll, just spent? You know, like everything's just been squeezed out? Because when we move, we want to move structurally in such a way that that structure is being animated by something. And there's 2 ways one can be animated. One can be animated by prana, or the life force that is the connected with our breath, And that's moving from the inside out. So we're vibrant, we're full. It's like, our body is light and we're moving in a way where we're breathing, full through our ribs, and our nervous system is calm. Or we can be animated like puppets, right? Where it's like everybody, family members, friends, the news, your teachers, whatever, it's like everybody has a string. And if you've ever felt like you're going through life and something happens, pick up phone, respond by text, put phone back down, make a call, phone rings, answer the phone, got to get running, had something stressful happening, to where the strings. And if you felt like you're being animated, like you're a puppet on strings, I'll tell you that's not sustainable. And it's not going to bring you joy. And I'm sure you've experienced that already. But what that really ends up doing when we're living that way is it causes us to try and eke out some modicum of joy. And when we're living that way and we try to eke out some modicum of joy, then it means that we need to give one of those strings to advertisers. We need to give one of those strings, to somebody so that we can figure out what we need to feel better from outside in, some food or shopping, or I don't have something to fill the void. But when we learn to when we through Ayurveda yoga, when we learn the what, why, where, when, and then the how, we begin learning about the basics of sustainability. And that's really where true environmentalism needs to begin. If we really all started focusing truly on our bioecology and true sustainability, we would not really have any worries about what would be happening. Because if we were really connected with our own bioecology through sustainability, we would be so connected with the rhythms and cycles of nature, because we would see how similar we are. But many of us have so lost that connection, those rhythms and cycles of nature. And, like when the sun's up, we're doing one thing. When the sun's down, eating breakfast in the morning, eating our largest meal, at lunch, and eating very small in the evening. I mean, that's just a few. There's so many ways that that our body naturally wants to follow the exact same rhythms that are in nature, because we are nature. We're self-aware nature. The difference with us, and when we look out, in the cosmos, is that we have the ability to choose not to live sustainably. We can get on our mat and we can choose. We can hear the teacher saying, move with your breath, but we can say, I don't really want to do that. I don't really want to move with my breath. I'm bored. People will say, yoga's not for me. I'm bored. I'm like, that's a problem, because if we get that bored, when it means that we've got to get still, that's pointing to us that we are not at ease. And the only true sustainability is finding ease in the face of whatever it is that we experience, or whatever it is that's occurring. And so this idea of the basics and beginning at the or the new beginnings, it sounds so simple and lovely, and it's so incredibly freeing. But that those marionette strings, if we've lived in such a way, and that non-sustainable way, and we don't really know how to find that deep connection to our true nature, then we're always searching outside of ourselves, because the basics of the basics is our ability to connect with our own true inner nature, which our true inner nature is naturally has a rhythm that has cycles. But for many of us, we don't have the ability to connect with those anymore. I know I've had some people say to me at Shavasana at the end, whenever I say, take some time and just really sense your heart beating. That's something we need to do every day of our lives. We need to just stop and slow our heartbeat down and just sense with the rhythm of our heartbeat. So basic and so unglamorous for most, but is such a game changer when we just take that time. Let's just do that right now. Everybody online and here, and just place your hands over your heart. And you can close your eyes if you'd like or leave them open. And even if you can't feel your heartbeat, that's fine. You don't have to feel it, but just imagine. Imagine your physical, your beautiful physical heart beating. It's expanding, contracting. In between the two, there's a transition. And just taking a few moments here and just say to yourself, slow down. Just slowing your heartbeat down. And just even as you're sensing your heartbeat, let these words be your own. I love you. Just feel what that feels like around your heart and in your chest, just softening and finding coherency in the thought, I love you, sending that signal out and allowing it to come back to you with tenderness, softness, dropping any opposition, dropping resistance. Good. And then if you'd like, you can open your eyes. So simple, so basic. What did you notice when you did that? Was it hard for anybody to do that? Difficult? Anybody? Would you be willing to say if it was difficult? It has been. Yeah, that's good. It's like your shirt. You're evolving. And if anybody that they share online? Got distracted. Yeah, it's like that is a lovely, simple diagnostic to just kind of see how you're doing. Because one of the most important things that we want to do is we want to learn how to calm our nervous system. And the way to calm your nervous system is getting that brain and heart coherency. So my brain, I think, I have a thought, and I start to, so when we think of the three aspects of our experience, so we have a thought, right? Thoughts moves outward. You can just see it that way as a signal. And then our subtle or our mental emotional being is directly connected to our heart. And when you just take a little bit of time like that and you just physically slow your breath down and you draw your attention to your heart, just kind of slowing it down, you'll be able to see if your mind doesn't stop, if it's busy, or your heartbeat. It's like you need to say, okay, we got some work to do. Because if it's jagged and you're having trouble focusing, that is not sustainable. And the most important thing that you must do is find the sustainability of ease and find that ease. Because the opposite is dis-ease. In Ayurveda, we learn about, the stages of disease. And you learn about sort of the prelude to that. And one of the preludes to not being at ease is incoherency in the beating of the heart and the breath and the mind. And then naturally you start to feel it in the body, because when the breath the nervous system and the heart aren't in coherency, every structure in the body is not going to be in coherency. You can't push fluids through. It's like your ability toward absorption, to be able to absorb nutrients and to assimilate nutrients, your ability to secrete and move what you need to secrete and move, and then just the natural rhythms of your body when they're out of coherency. It's kind of like this. So for you guys online, so you guys start clapping, okay, and just sort of clap. Some clap, change your rhythm up. You guys clap. And and then just start making some noise and just sort of clap off beat. Okay, that's what it's like in your body. Right? It's like your body's like, I don't know what to do. I got this going on. And we know this for certain. Our cells and the way we reproduce cells, it's all connected with the way that we think and how we process emotion. And one of the gateways when you come to yoga is we start with the body. Now, here's the thing to know at the most basic level, you don't really change matter with matter. You don't change form with form. It's like somebody comes in, they're like, "Oh, I want to do better with my low back. My low back is tender." Well, we're not necessarily going to just change that low back because there has to be a period of time of regeneration to produce new cells. Well, for new tissue. Well, during all that time, we need to start addressing the symptoms. So at the very beginning, yeah, we'll take a look at the symptoms and reduce the symptom as much as we can, but we stay very aware that all we're doing is addressing symptoms so we can open up the pathway to really be able to get to this synchrony that we want between thought, emotion, and the way the body moves. And the way that we do that from the very beginning through the body is that we pay attention. First of all, we want to pay attention to what's happening with the physical body structurally. So we look at the bones and what's happening there. But many of you that whatever stage you are in your asana practice, I mean, how tough is it to really pay attention to your toes staying spread and lifted, knees soft, pelvis? I mean, it requires a coherent mind. That's why it's so hard at first. I've got students that I've probably told them for 10 years, right knee back towards your pinky toe. They'll be like, why can't I get this thing right on this right knee thing that's happening? And it's because it's not about your body, but you've developed a string of neurons that has a pattern for that's how the knee goes. Right. And so it takes some time to undo that, for that stuff to be undone. And in the meantime, we just kind of address the symptoms as best we can, focusing on spreading the toes and really staying with you about, moving with your breath. You want every movement preceded by a breath. That's the real mastery. But I know it's tough. I was in class this morning. I had a couple of people that were around me. I mean, they were going so fast. I was just like, okay, this is good for my own focus. I mean, stay really focused because it's like the body was going and the breath, the picture, what I felt was like the body was running. It's like their breath was going, you need me. I'm your fuel. Come here. You need me. You need me. But whenever it's separate like that and we're walking or we're doing whatever we're doing and we're completely moving without our breath, that's when the puppet strings are out. The puppet strings are there. And instead of moving from the inside out and really moving toward mastery of saying, you know what? Every move I make is going to be, I'm going to have it to the best of my ability, at least 80% of the time. It's going to be preceded by an inhale or an exhale. And if it isn't, I'm going to pause. Right. And really moving in that way. I know it can be tough because it feels like other people around you are going faster. You might think, well, what will the teacher think? Don't worry. The teachers here, that's how they're trained. They know that's how they practice and how they learn how to practice. Less is more in the realm of learning how to be able to be animated by life force from the inside out. If you've seen some of those really technical postures, everybody can do those. But you can only do them sustainably when you really master that process of the body following the breath. It's not easy, though, right? Because we've got a lot of things that pull us. Those puppet strings are tied to our past. We have a lot of patterns. It can be just before you came into class, you get this text from somebody in your family or, just before, just something that just pulls you off center. right? And it can be so difficult because everything feels so familiar. And see, the thing about beginning at the beginning and staying with the basics, it's like building blocks that when you stick with them, you can let the patterns of the past be, and instead of dragging the past into the present. Because if you're having a response, let's say, I mean, I actually have had some last couple of days, and I got a call, and it's because I'm supposed to go to Beaumont tomorrow and do some different stuff. And I get this call, and it's like everything's a little discombobulated. And so emotionally, it really has a strong tug on me. I mean, just a really, and not only that, it's a family of origin thing. So it's family, it can really pull on old patterns. And the thing about it is that there's a part of me that every part of me feels like I should be doing the familiar, the way that you relate, like with your parents or your kids, or like every part of me, I mean, part of me just feels this pull to, okay, make this call and then do that. And then I probably need to stop this because of that. And then I need to, because that's how we did it in my family. You just drop everything. And, that's what I call like a hook or putting on the brakes to your potential. And every part of me felt that pull, but it was like, no, wait a minute. I just went, mm-mm. And I come back to what I know to be my own practices that we teach in Ayurveda yoga. I come back to the basics. I come back to my breathing. Very simple. I just start naming my breath. And I'm like, I'm not going to return. I'm not going to respond to this with that old emotional thought pattern. Because if I have the same old thoughts, the same old, and I process it with the same old emotions, then my body is going to be like puppet strings. It got pulled. Okay, this is what you do when this happens in the family. This is what happens. This is how or any of you like in your family, are you like the one that takes care of everything, like in the whole, like, if probably so, because we get a lot of people like you in here, right? Like me in here, that you're like the person in the family that, or whatever. And so, that, but, that kind of like, but if I don't, then who will? It's like, you know what? Relax. Do I really want to keep the same old pattern going? Do I really want to keep those memorized actions really going? It's like, nope. I cut that one a long time ago, and it's not gonna get back on there. I'm gonna come back to my breath. I'm going to return. I'm going to get grounded, the basics, get grounded with my feet on the ground, come back to my breathing. Got into a yoga class. Matter of fact, I've taken two today. Got in there, I've meditated, a long meditation practice at home, and just begin at the beginning, come back to my breath. And I know that what will happen is I come to the other side. It's going to be way better than I thought. Things are going to be taken care of better than I thought, and I will have approached it in a sustainable way. I will not be like having all this cortisol dumped into my bloodstream, but instead, you know, is it all gone? No. I mean, there were several times during my practice that music you played was so perfect for it. It was so episodic. It was so perfect because that music, I was just like, lift up thine eyes, keep my eyes lifted, stay focused, and just could really sense all the goings on, of all the stuff that can happen. It's like, nope, stay lifted, stay lifted, stay lifted. But the thing is that whenever we have things like that happen, it's really easy to feel like we're failing. I mean, it is. It's super easy to feel like, well, gosh, if I've got this so handled, I ought to just be flying right through this. No, it is the ability, right? The sustainability factor is the ability to see your old thought, emotion, body patterns have kicked in, the ability to see it like a movie, and to be able to keep your eyes focused, your inner vision, very much focused on the direction you're headed. To stay clear, to stay focused. But I get it, y'all. It's really tough. Family stuff is just like, I don't know. It's really the toughest. And because you love them so much and you want to be there and you want to, you want to do so much, but what you don't have control over, you don't have control over. So why on earth will we get some insanity going on in our thoughts, our emotions, and then our physical body, our nervous system is on overdrive. It's like our nervous system is saying, you're supposed to be running from a dinosaur right now, or you're supposed to have your spear out to get food for the tribe or something, or you're supposed to be kicking somebody's butt right now, or running super fast, but you're just sitting there. So what happens emotionally, it's like this physical part, there's like a backup. It's like your drains gotten clogged, right? And all this cortisol, this survival stuff's getting dumped into your bloodstream. And when you've heard that term before, emotions stuck in the body, that's exactly what it's talking about. It's like the body starts responding because you've got these chemicals being dumped into the bloodstream and the brain and the bloodstream, and it's telling you that you're supposed to be doing something else because of the way you're responding, but instead you're just kind of sitting there going, and you're just kind of white knuckling your way through it. When instead, it's it's very simple. Come back to your physical structure, you come back to your breath. This second ring from the physical structure, the second ring, this is referred to as our breath body. And just a reminder, when I speak of breath, there's breath and then there's the life force or prana or chi that it brings into the body. And so the idea of breath and breath body is that it's a little bit subtler aspect of who we are. The physical aspect of our nature is very dense, and then our breath body is less dense. Well, when you start practicing Ayurveda yoga, the idea is you want to start to blur the line between the breath body and the physical body. And you start cutting those marionette strings, right? That's why you'll hear, I think Robin even said it when she was teaching. She was talking about, she said something around, I'm going to paraphrase. They weren't these exact words, but it was something like, just because I'm telling you to move, you don't just move, right? That's the main instruction you get here. The instruction you're getting from the teacher is listen to me, do what I tell you to do, but what I'm telling you to do is to listen to your breath, right? Pause. Just because the teacher says inhale, take your arms out and up, doesn't mean you're supposed to force an inhale and shoot your arms out and up. You pause and you hold on for a moment. You receive your inhale and then you move your body, because then what you're doing is you're blurring the line between your physical body and your life force. And what happens then is that then there's some intelligence that's joining together the relationship of your physical body, when I mean physical body, I'm talking your nervous system, all your systems, cardiovascular system, all your systems, your endocrine system. When that physical and breath body come into a coherency, then instead of being pulled and tugged on from the outside, you start training yourself to hear, to move, to be from the inside out. That is sustainable. And that's what sustainability is. Now, I know I make it sound easy. It's not all that easy because, as I mentioned, you have those familiar patterns. And, the patterns, they can be just totally non serving patterns. Let's take smoking, for example, right? If a person smokes cigarettes, most anybody that smokes that I've known that smokes says, I can just feel how this is so unhealthy for me. I mean, most anybody can feel it, they know it, they sense it. This isn't good for me, and I can't stop. Why? It's because it's so familiar. Their body, their physical body has been trained. Their mental emotional body learns to kind of dull down the emotional nature by smoking. And then when the thoughts are just all about smoking, it's like there's an immediate gratification that feels, for the moment anyway, that one's in charge. And it's familiar, but all it really is just another puppet string. Is smoking good, bad, right, or wrong? Yeah, no, netty, netty. It's not this, it's not that. It's just the question is it sustainable? Is it truly sustainable and really helpful? And, the more that we can start to look at things from that perspective, the healthier you're going to be. And so, the basics, we have awareness of our physical body and our breath body. And then finally, we want to, it's called our mental, emotional. We want to blur the lines between all three. Our mental, emotional, kind of realm of awareness, that has to do with our awareness of how we're feeling. So earlier when I said, well, what's the deal? Like, I just kind of want to feel great and I want the yucky stuff to go away. Well, emotions are emotions and they're just not going to always feel great. And sometimes it's just not, sometimes it's most appropriate to be feeling sad for some reason because something sad has happened or loss has happened, or there's other times that it's time to experience joy and to be in a state of joy. But the idea is that as your physical body and your breath body come into a coherent relationship, you will start to become aware of how your emotions are affecting your body. And just being aware of it is the total evolutionary game changer. It was like I mentioned to you, I was in class and yes, I was still hurting and yes, it still is bothering me, but I wasn't thinking and obsessing over it. I wasn't blocking emotion. I was staying with my breath, following instructions in class, doing just what I'm teaching you guys right now. Followed along lines of energy with my structure, kept my breath as fluid as possible. I could definitely see I had an extremely difficult time balancing. My body had a tough time. But the thing about it is it's not about whether your body gets into a balance, and it's not about your mind not feeling sadness or concern, but it's having the awareness. And so by practicing that balancing posture, if my body's not feeling stable right now, there's nothing wrong with that. But I still want to stay with the practice and I want to stay very focused because it's cultivating an awareness of where I am. And when what you can feel is what you heal. If you can't feel something, you can't heal something. And so that's why the relationship between the physical body, the breath body, and the mental body are so important. So when you're in class, you'll hear the teacher say, let your body follow your breath. And then the next cue you're always going to hear coming along is going to be a suggestion around inner dialogue or mental dialogue. If it's a real beginner level class, you're going to hear something like, breathe in, I am all right now. That is the most basic and simple thing. I've been teaching that for over 25 years. Do you know when I hear back from anybody, maybe they moved or, that and the yoga song that I sing are the two number one things that people will say they love the most. They'll say, you know what? I mean, I get stories all the time. They'll say, you know what? And I mean, there was one student, I got a Facebook message from her. I hadn't seen her in 10 years. And she's like, I was in the airport and it was just insane. And she said, I just had to get in touch with you because I just sat down and it just came to me. I just took a deep breath and I went, I am all right now. And she says, everything changed. Everything just started changing. And she said, it took me back right away to when I was on my mat and you would say that over and over. And I really wondered why you were saying that all the time. But it's the basics, y'all. It's the basic stuff because your nervous system, you have creative brain and you have your survival brain. See, your creative brain, it's like when you start saying, I am all right now, and you start slowing your breath down, your brain doesn't really know if it's something you're actually doing or not. If you just start saying, I am all right now, and you slow your breath down, that as far as your brain's concerned, it's like, oh, we're all right now because you said. But if you say, we're not all right now, and what if the worst thing happens and this isn't going well, and oh my God, I'm going to try and figure everything out, then your crocodile brain, your survival brain kicks in. And that being able to shift from your survival brain to your creative brain, that is the most basic and important thing that you must do in any situation. And y'all, it's you can't just wait until it happens and go, I'll just take a breath when things go bad. Because whenever you get really anxious and somebody tells you take a breath, I mean, and you haven't really practiced, what's that like? It's very difficult. Yeah, you want to go, ugh. It's like an actor going on stage, trying to practice their lines once they're on stage. It's too late, right? You practice, practice, practice. So when those times come, when you experience those things, you know your lines. And your lines are breathing in, breathing out, even if it's just inhale or place my hands over my heart. I am all right now. But if you haven't practiced it, and I'm not just talking 1 year, y'all, I'm talking 2 years, 3 years, it's got to become more familiar to you than your old patterns. And for you guys, experienced yogis, it's got to become more. You're creating new vasanas. Vasanas are thought tendencies and thought propensities accompanied by an emotion. This new way has got to become more familiar to you than the old way, because we naturally move toward that which is most familiar. And they've done studies on small children that were abused, and they have an option whether they're going to go home with the abusive parent. They're generally going to choose what's most familiar rather than what is unknown. And so I cannot even begin to tell you how important, first of all, just a quick review, your basic structural alignment and working with that. Not about getting it perfect. It's not about getting the alignment perfect. It's about what happens to your brain the moment you pay attention to the alignment of your structure. When you start paying attention to the alignment of your structure, your nervous system will naturally start to calm down, because your creative brain says, finally, we're going to get back in sync here. This is really great. Finally. Now, don't think that those old patterns won't tug at you. Because I've been practicing for a lot of years. And just like I said today, I feel those patterns tugging. And I would love the tug to go away, but it's not. It's how it is. It's part of my history. But the new patterns that I've created are stronger than that tug. But I've got to accept and just to allow that the tug is just there. All right. So you got to practice, getting aligned with your structure, and then practice getting your body following your breath, following your inhale, following your exhale. And over time, as you practice more and more yoga, you'll start to learn to breathe more efficiently. The more efficiently you learn to breathe, the more your body will start to go into that relaxation or creation response much easier. But y'all, it takes time. It's like repetitive patterns that you practice over and over again. And it does require shifting your inner dialogue. So your nervous system responds differently. And so you are releasing different chemicals into the bloodstream. Practice this heart practice quite a bit. Get really good, and you start releasing really super love chemicals into your bloodstream. And then that's really great. So just a couple of things in closing here. So your frame of mind and your perception is so incredibly important. The idea of the basics, this sounds so simple, but it's so important. Do you look at the world as what if the worst thing happens? Or what if something better than I imagined can happen. So simple and so basic, y'all. It's so important. And you want to check that. And if you notice yourself going, there I am again, saying, what if the worst thing happens? You just go, oh, okay. That's the familiar pattern. Come back to your breathing, allow it to be there, and just start shifting your inner dialogue. I am all right now. What if this is so much better than I ever imagined? And let's face it, guys, if you really want to grow and evolve, you have to be willing to step into the unknown. But when you step into the unknown, do y'all remember like in the olden days, like Red Skelton type shows or old timey community, they had that dunda, that cane, they take it and pull somebody off stage. It's like a hook. Your familiar patterns, when you get a trigger, it's like that hook. It's like it will pull you back into the past. I don't know if you ever saw Godfather 3. I don't ever watch these kind of shows anymore now that I know what it does to my brain, but I used to love those Godfathers. But in Godfather 3, he's trying to get out of the mafia, right? And he's standing there and he's talking to, I don't know, he's talking to someone that has to do with the Catholic Church, and he's like, as much as I try to get out, they pull me back in, And I always remember that when I feel the pull of those old patterns, it's like, I see you, and the moment you see it, then you can start to work with it. But just remember that break is, that hook is going to be there. And through yoga psychology, for you guys in Being Yoga, as we move forward, we're going to be talking about, those Shaktis and those superpowers and how you deal with those hooks to strengthen your resolve. Let's see. Then I said that. I want to make sure. Okay. Finally, I feel like this is like one of the most important things. Well, two things, but kind of the flip side of the same coin. We have got to forgive ourselves. You have got to learn what it means to forgive yourself. We hear so much about the importance of forgiving others, but the truth is that forgiveness begins at home. Which home? This little home that you're in. And if when you get on your mat, you want to start to notice, right? When you slow things down and you stay with your breath, what I found most people are running from are the ways that they haven't forgiven themselves, or, shame, or kind of a natural feeling of guilt that may have occurred when you were a child, or whatever the case may be. And I'm telling you, mercy and forgiveness, this is like totally the most important thing towards sustainability that must happen. And then on the flip side of that coin, the cultivation of gratitude, learning to focus on what you do have. I don't think there's one of us online or in this room that hasn't screwed up. Are there any saints in this room? Because if there are, maybe you can give me a few lessons. And I'm sure online, I'm sure to some degree we've all betrayed somebody. We've all got whatever those skeletons are. If you're a human, it's going to be there. There's going to be some lie or something that you've done. You got to let it go, man. The past is the past is the past. You cannot let your past define your future. You must learn what it means to live in a state of gratitude. And what is gratitude? Gratitude is love for your own presence. Just like what we did, paying attention to your heart, that was an expression of gratitude. And gratitude will help you heal places that you're not forgiving yourself. Because the more you learn to set yourself free, the more you'll find that it's way easier to do it for others when you can set your own self free. So if you find that you're holding somebody in resentment, or you feel really angry, you can bet that you can point that right back at you. Those are ways that you haven't forgiven yourself. We saw a little sign when we were at the ashram, or a big sign, and it said, when you see faults in others, be very happy, because you're able to see your own faults. because any faults you see in another, there's something you're experiencing for yourself. But the same holds true for the ways that you're not forgiving another. That's ways that you're not forgiving yourself, or you haven't set your own self free. So whether you're feeling or experiencing animosity, or whether you feel or experience jealousy, fear, judgment, I can tell you right now that's the seed, or a seed from lack of forgiveness or lack of self love and mercy, and not setting yourself free. So that's what I have to say tonight about that and the basics. And I know it is really basic, but like one of the basic things that my mom, after my mom passed away, I really appreciated all the basic lessons that she gave me that was so important. And one that I remember so well, when, I always felt like people didn't like me. And I remember saying, Mom, nobody really likes me. I don't really have any friends, and you would think that your mom would say something like, "Oh, I'm going to go kick their butt for you." I mean, that's what I thought. Right. And she said, "Well, how good of a friend have you been?" She said, how are you showing up? And I went, "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" And she said, "If you want a friend, it's really important to be a friend." But what I learned through that, I mean, it's so important, but you got to be a friend here. And that took me years to really learn what that meant. Like that trigger that I shared with you guys that I had earlier, I actually had about from different parts of the family, to a few different, how whenever they all come at one time, you know the most important thing for me was really to be a friend to myself, to return back to the foundational principles and the basics that I hold to be true. I got a fancy mantra that I've been working on for years. I got a lot of fancy postures, a bunch of fancy information and stuff that I know, but it's always the fundamentals and the basics that bring me back home. And that home is right here. So if you would all please just place your hands over your heart, you guys online. And as you take a moment and reconnect with your breathing and the rhythm of your breath, and feeling, imagining, or sensing your heartbeat. I've had people say to me, "What do I need to learn to breathe for? I always breathe." And it's like, yeah, but do you breathe well? Do you speak well? Do you speak to yourself well? Do you walk well? Is your heart well? And it's so simple, not easy necessarily, but so simple to return home, get your breath in rhythm with your heartbeat. And when you feel those hooks, those pulls toward the old pattern, I always say, back to the drawing board, back to the drawing board, begin again, begin again. And if it's hard to do now, I promise you, stick with your training, practically marry yourself to your training. And you'll start to see that what you want, that peace, that stillness, that ease that you desire, it's going to be the most familiar thing to you. And it'll be what you feel that you need. Taking a deep cleansing breath. Namaste. Thank you all so much for the basics. Have a very nice evening. Thank you so much, Jody, who is our online.